Hey everybody, it's Ian the Off Kilter Crafter. I hope you're having a great day today. Today's an exciting day because we finally get to open up clue number 10 from Cotton Cut's Puzzle Mystery Quilt Sparkle and Shine. Clue number 10 is always an exciting one because we finally get to see how this quilt comes together and how to put it all together. And we have a little goodie in clue number 10 as well, so I'm excited for that. It's such an exciting day, and I'm going to step you through the process of putting your quilt top together, so stick around. We've got a lot going on today. It's going to be a long day, but it's going to be a very fun day as well. Give me a little bit of leeway on this video. I'm still trying to figure out how to film these videos because trying to put a whole quilt into a frame of a camera shot is not easy, but I'm going to do my best and try my hardest to make sure it's as easy and understandable as possible. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, let's go ahead and get started. Make sure that you have all of your supplies with you so that way you can put today's quilt together. Don't forget you need your Clue 10 instructions, and remember I'm doing the small one. You've probably already seen the video from Cotton Cuts of the big reveal or have seen the final product posted on one of their social media channels. So make sure you have all 4 pages because this one is a longer one. We have 4 pages of instructions to put the whole quilt top together, so make sure you have that. Make sure to have your colorway card so that way you know your fabric guide I should say. Then also you'll need your clue number 10. And I've gone ahead and grabbed all of my other clues 1 through 9 so that way those are ready to go. Some other supplies that I purchased for my quilt, I went ahead, since I'm going to be making my quilt a little bit bigger than what the standard size is, I needed extra binding fabric. So I went ahead and bought some extra binding fabric that matches what I have in my clue number 10, so that's ready to go. I also bought my backing fabric. This is the Tula Pink Lineworks. I don't remember the specific name, but it's the 108-inch wide back, which is going to work perfectly because my colorway Moonstone is a Tula Pink, and it's from the same collection. So this is going to be my backing fabric for my quilt. And then, like I said, I'm going to make mine a little bit bigger, so I have some extra fabric that I chose to make borders out of, and I'll be adding on those borders during this video as well. So these are 3 extra things. They do not come in your clue number 10. I did purchase these on my own, but I like to make my quilts a little bit bigger because I'm 6'2" and I like to have a little bit of a bigger quilt. So these are extra supplies that I did purchase. Alright, let's go ahead and open up clue number 10 and see what's inside. The first thing that I got inside my clue packet number 10 is a little goodie from Cotton Cuts. I love that they throw in little goodies for you to have during the course of the quilt. This one's a little flashlight with the Cotton Cuts logo. It's not showing up on camera very well, but it's a little Cotton Cuts logoed flashlight, which is going to be really perfect for when I'm sewing in the dark. Not really, I don't sew in the dark, I'm just kidding. But I like to have these flashlights around in case the power goes out, and that way I can just grab one if I need one. So I kind of stash them around my house, and that way if the power goes out, I have a way to get around the house. Alright, the first pieces of fabric we have are, this one is which fabric? This is E fabric, and I have 2 long rectangles of E fabric. The next thing I have are 2 A rectangles. These are smaller rectangles. They're definitely smaller than the E rectangles that I just opened up. Next, I have some very long A rectangles. They're longer than the E rectangle that I opened up, and I don't even know how I'm going to display all of these. I don't think I'm going to be able to, but I do like to go through whatever's included so that way you know what's included in your clue packet 10. And lastly, I have 4, I guess it would be considered medium-sized rectangles in this pack. I'm not really sure. They're shorter than the longest A, but longer than the shortest A. But anyways, I have 4 of these medium-sized A rectangles. And then of course I also have my binding fabric in here as well. And like I said, I did go ahead and purchase some extra so that way I could have a little extra binding to make it all the way around my quilt. I'm going to go ahead and set my binding fabric off to the side. I'm not going to need that today. but I am going to need these clues, and I'm going to go ahead and put them in a place off camera, and we'll go ahead and start diving into putting our clue together. All right, let's go ahead and go over a few notes here on the front before we get too deep into it. One of them is border strips have been cut longer than needed. Always measure your quilt and trim the borders to fit before attaching. So just remember that your borders are going to have that extra wiggle room for you, and opposite borders should be cut the same size as each other. Then also it says this packet includes coordinating fabrics for the binding. There's enough to cut 6 binding strips up to 2.5 inches wide. Finish size of this quilt is approximately 48 by 60. To finish your quilt, you'll need 3 1/4 yard of backing and 56 by 68 inches of batting. So you'll need that material to finish it if you're going to finish it in this size. I'm going to be making it bigger, so it doesn't matter. And don't forget, if you have any problems at all, you can always contact Cotton Cuts through their website, www.cottoncuts.com/PMQ-support. All right, let's go ahead and get started with our center section. So I'm starting off in the center section with step number 1. Remember, all your seam allowances are still 1/4 inch. For step number 1, it says to join sections 7B to the top and bottom of section 3B. We're going to press out, so that means we're going to go away from 3B. We're going to be pressing towards 7B, and this should measure 12.5 by 24.5 when it's all said and done with. So this is, I'm going to try and stay on my tabletop for as long as I can. I'm going to reach up here and look at my viewfinder a little bit. I'm going to keep this on the tabletop as long as I can, but I can already tell we've got some big pieces coming already. So yeah, we're going to go ahead. Oop, that's not right. I got to flip that around. So basically what I'm doing is I'm going to make sure that my D fabric matches kind of in shape with my clue 3B here. So we're forming a diamond with our fabric D. So it should look something like that whenever we're all put together. And remember, all we're doing is we're going to lay this one on the top here, so across this seam, and then press towards our 7B clue, and then the same thing happens on the bottom. We're going to put it right there, go across there. What is that? That's a yellow piece of fabric. I don't know where that came from. Yellow thread, I should say. And once we get it sewn across there, we'll push it towards our, we'll iron out our seam so that it's pushed towards 7B. I hope that made any sense at all. All right, I'm going to go ahead and take this over to my sewing machine and get started. All right, there we go. I have put it together, and whenever I was putting my 7B clues onto my 3B clue, I made sure to focus on these points right here as the way I would line it up. So basically, I knew that these triangle pieces would match up in this corner, and so whenever I was sewing them together, I made sure, it's hard to show on camera here, but I made sure to line up where these seams were, because if you look at them, there's a seam that goes all the way through on both sides here. So it's really easy to line up your clues so that way all of these match up nicely, because otherwise, as you can see here, this is a little shorter than this, and if I had lined my clue 7B up to my 3B using this line right here, that would have meant that it would have been off a little bit, and my center points would not have matched up as well. So it's still not 100% perfect. This line isn't 100% straight, but it at least gets you a little bit closer. All right, so we now have our clue. It's sideways right now because you can actually see the whole thing, but that is our bits for 7B and 3B. We've put all that together. We're going to go ahead and put this aside and move on to step 2. For step number 2, it says to join sections of 6A to the top and bottom of section 1A as shown, and we're going to make 2 of these. So let me get this arranged the way it has in the picture. Okay, maybe if I put it this way, it will all fit into frame. All right, so we're moving on to step number 2. Again, we're joining sections 6A to the top and bottom of 1A. So 1A, you should have your D fabric facing to the right, and then for our 6A, it should also be facing to the right. This feels a little weird. I'm going to be honest, as I'm looking at this feels a little weird as I'm looking at it, because I always, for some reason, my brain tries to point the triangles similarly, I guess. But anyways, so this is how it goes together. So you have your E square, your A, D, and A fabrics up there, and then just inverse that for, or mirror? I don't know if that's inverse or mirror, but anyways. Another useful tip is make sure to keep your labels. I always keep my labels on my pieces until I finish with the quilt. Literally, that's the last step that I do after I finished, is I pull all of my pins and my labels, because it can save you a whole heap of time in case you get into trouble or need some help. That can be really beneficial to just leave the clue numbers on them, so that way you don't have to go back through digging through your instructions to figure out which clue is what. All right, so this is what we've got. We're going to sew this twice, and again, all we're doing is we're going to sew the top to the top and then the bottom to the bottom. We're going to make 2 clues that look exactly like this, and they should, and we're going to press them towards 1A. So we're going to press them towards the center whenever we're done. All right, I'm going to go take this to the sewing machine, and I'll meet you back here. All right, there we go. I have finished step 2. I currently have my clues on their side, so that way they fit in the camera frame, but I have done 2 of them exactly the same, and I'm gonna go ahead and turn them this way so you can kind of see, it's just so hard to fit it in the frame. But anyways, all right, so there is 2 of these, exactly the same, and let's go ahead and move on to step number 3. All right, folks, I had to give up on the tabletop. I knew it was just not going to work anymore with how big our sections were already getting. So here we are. I've put them up on my design wall, and we'll continue like this and move through the rest of the quilt like this. Hopefully, I'll be able to do it better this way. Anyways, all right, so I have just finished step 2. We're moving on to step 3, which says to join step 2 to the left and right of step 1 with the long rectangles of C on the outside. All right, so taking a look at this, what I've done is I've separated out my step 2 that we just did. So this is the step that we just completed, and what we're going to do is we're going to put it to the left and right of step number 1 so that our rectangles of C face outwards. And you'll notice that your D fabric matches up in kind of this bow tie style. So whenever you put this whole center section together, you'll have your bow ties matching up in each quadrant of the quilt. So I'm going to go ahead and sew all this together. And remember, it's really the best way to match everything up is to find those seams. I'm going to be looking at these 2 seams, but these will also match up as well, and these will match up as well. But these are the ones that I really want to focus on because that kind of draws your eye directly to them. So I'm going to work with those to make sure that my pieces line up as best as possible. Remember, we're not going for perfection. I've had to remind myself that a few times because these sections on clue 2 or on step 2 were a little wobbly. But again, we're not going for perfection. We're going for a finished quilt top. All right, I'm going to go ahead and do this, and I'll meet you back here. All right, here we go. We have put together both of our step 2 and step 1. So we have step 1 right down the center, and then step 2 on either side being a mirror image so that all of our, what fabric was that? That is our D fabric. All of our D fabric points into the center of our quilt. And we have our bow ties. These are kind of reference points that I use whenever I'm quilting. Do you use them? I don't know. Let me know in the comments down below. I'm interested to see if anybody kind of uses those same reference points to get everything lined up. Okay, anyways, so whenever we're done with step 3, it should look like this, and we're making sure to press into the center so both of our step 2 sections will be facing inwards whenever we're pressing them. All right, we're finished with this for now. Let's go ahead and move on to step number 4. All right, moving on to step number 4, it says to sew a section of 3A with large triangles of A pointing down. So we have our A triangles on either side here. They're pointing down to the top of section 9 with large A triangles pointing up. So your A triangles should be pointing towards each other as shown in the picture. Make sure to always look at your picture too, just to double check yourself. And then once we sew these together, we're going to press it towards 3A, and we're making 2 of these. So remember, we have 2 of both of these, and we're just going to sew these together in the middle there, making sure that A's point towards each other, and we'll come back whenever we get that done. All right, here we go. Here is the result from step number 4. You have your clue 3A on top and then your clue 9 on bottom. Now we're going to move on to our step number 5. By the way, you're going to make sure to press towards 3A on that step number 4. Moving on to step number 5, it says to join a step 4 to the top and bottom of step 3 as shown with the E triangles on the outside. So as we look at this, where's our E triangle? Okay, so the E triangles are these right here, and they're going to face outwards. So what we're going to do is we're going to attach this to the top and to the bottom of our step number 4, which is the center of our quilt, making sure that E triangles are on the outside. All right, let's go ahead and sew that up, and we'll come back. All right, there we go. We have finished step 5. We have joined step 4 to the top and bottom of step 3 as shown. So here's step 4, both up there and down here. Makes this really nice long column, and you're going to press towards step 4. So you're going to be pressing away from the center of your quilt whenever you do that. Yeah, it's looking really good. I'm so excited. I always love this part. All right. So we're done with this for now. I'm going to go ahead and set this aside, and we'll move on to step number 6. All right, moving on to step number 6, it says to join a section of 8A to the top of a section 4. So we're going to add 8A to the top of section 4, clue 4, and then join a section of 2A to the bottom of 4. So we're going to have, it's 8A, 4, 2A, just like that, and we're going to make 2 of these. Now, here's something important. I almost got this backwards. Our B fabric, yes, our B fabric is going to be in a line. So as you can see, the B fabric is going towards my left side here, goes towards the left, and our B fabric is also going to match in line with that. You're also going to notice that there is kind of that bow tie facing outwards from the center. So those are some reference points to help you figure out which way everything needs to go, because I definitely almost put this one backwards facing the other way. So don't do that. So we're going to make 2 of them exactly like this, 8A, 4, and 2. Oops, I meant to say 2A, not 2, 2A. All right, I'm done with step 6. We have 8A, 4, and 2A down here at the bottom. And it's interesting because it says for pressing notes, although I've shown the pressing direction towards section 4, so basically pushing in towards clue number 4 on both sides, you may need to press in the opposite direction depending on how seams in section 6A are pressed on each side. So keep that in mind. You may need to go against what the directions say, and instead of pressing your seams into the center towards clue 4, you may need to press them out towards the edge of that clue. All right, we're done with this. I've made 2 of them. Let's go ahead and move on to step 7. It's getting harder and harder for me to find space in the frame along with what's going on, so I'm going to actually step out of the frame a little bit here, and we're going to move on to step number 7, and it says to join step 6 to the left and right of step 5. So we have our center section here, we have step 6 here on the left, and then again on the right. Pay attention to which way your clue 2A and 8A are facing. You'll need 8A up here in the top left and down in the bottom right, 2A up in the top right and in the bottom left. So you want to make sure that your bow ties are matching up. That's what I love about these puzzle mystery quilts, is I never would have thought that you had these kind of bow ties in there and like how they come together. It's amazing. Sheila's amazing. I don't know how she has the brain space to do it, but she does. All right, so We're going to go ahead and add it to the left and to the right, and we're going to press towards the center. When this is all done, it should measure 36.5 square. So let's go ahead and make that happen. All right, we finished with step number 7. We've gone ahead and pressed our seams into the center of the quilt. It says, great job, this completes the center section. Next, you'll be constructing the pieced borders before adding them onto the quilt in the correct order. A diagram showing the order of adding the borders is on page 4. So we have finished the center section. It looks awesome. I gotta say, this looks so cool. I'm so glad I went with this colorway. I love all the colors working together. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this down, and we'll go ahead and start working on our next step, which is step number 8 and our pieced borders. All right, step number 8 says to take 2 of each section 8B and 1B and join them together. Pressing can be in either direction. We're going to make 2 of these, but remember you had 3 of 8B and 3 of 1B, so we only need 2 of them right now, so keep that in mind. Measurement should be 36.5 by 3.5. Join them together at the top and bottom of the quilt center and press them towards the board. Press towards this border. My bad. Press towards this border. I shouldn't have taken the other part down, but oh well, it doesn't matter. It's fine. So I'm going to go ahead and make 2 of these by sewing right in the center right there, and I can press it in either direction, and then I'm going to add it to the top and bottom of what we just created for the center part of our quilt. All right, there we go. I've added one to the top and bottom. It's hard for me to show the other end, but there's one on both the top and the bottom of the center portion of our quilt, and it has been pressed out towards the border. It's now time to move on to step number 9. All right, moving on to step number 9, it says to join sections 2B, which is this one right here, and 6B. We're going to press in either direction. We're going to make 2 of these, and these are the inner side borders. So they're going to go on the sides of our center sections that we've been working on. Center section that we have been working on. There's not multiple center sections, just one. Join them on the sides of the quilt next and press towards this border. So we're going to go ahead and put these 2 together like so. In the middle, we can press in either direction. We're going to make 2 of them because we're going to put them on both the left and right side that we've been working on, and we're going to press out towards these borders. So I'm going to go ahead and work on that right now. All right, there we go. I have finished step 9, so I've put on my side borders just like so. Again, didn't feel like putting it all the way up on the sheet behind me, but we have finished step 9. Let's move on to step 10. All right, since these steps are so similar, I went ahead and put them both up at the same time. We'll walk through them here. For step 10, it says to join the remaining 1B section to the right of a short strip of A from this month's pack. So from this month, clue 10, you'll need the shortest A rectangle, and then we're going to press this towards the A strip. So we're going to press it towards this one. And then we're going to join a strip E to the top and press towards E. So we're going to add, once we sew these 2 together, we're going to add the E strip on the top of that. So that's step 10. Step 11 is pretty much the same thing, just kind of mirror imaged. This time we're going to be joining clue 8B to the top, or excuse me, to the left of a short strip of A. So we have our short little strip from pack 10. This clue, we'll have that one. And then we'll add in the strip of E along the top and press towards E. Again, for this one, we're also pressing towards our A block from this pack. Hope that makes sense. It's pretty much the exact same thing for both of these. We're just doing them kind of mirror image. So this is step 10 up here, and then we do that again for step 11. All right, now that you've finished step 10 and 11, we have 2 very similar looking steps. So we have this center section. We have 2 of those now. Even though 10 and 11 were 2 different clues, they ended up producing the exact same outcome. So now what we're going to do is we're moving on to step 12, where it says to join section 5 to the left and right of step 10 and 11. We're going to be making 2 of those, and we're going to press it towards the center. So take a look at these. You have your bow ties kind of diagonal facing in towards the center of your quilt like that, and then you have your C fabric in the corners going out of the quilt, I guess is the best way to put that. But anyways, it should look something like this. So you have your bow ties going in towards the center of the quilt. That's kind of how I remember which way it's supposed to go. And of course, always refer to your instructions for the pictures and graphics. Those really help me out a lot. All right, let me make sure there's nothing else. Join these to the top and bottom of the quilt and press towards the border. All right, so I am gonna go ahead and sew 2 of these together, and I'll put it onto my quilt. All right, it looks like I might need to back my camera out in order to fit everything in. It's getting close, but here we are at the end of step number 12. I almost said clue 12. At the end of step 12, where we've added in our step 10 and 11 to the top and bottom of the center part of our quilt. It should look something like this. And now we're gonna move on to step number 13. All right, moving on to step number 13, it says, for the final side border, join a medium strip of A to each side of section 7A. We're gonna make 2 of these, and we're gonna press towards the A strip. So there are 4 of these strips included in your packet. And so what you're gonna do is you're gonna sew them on both sides of section 7A, clue 7A, section 7A, same thing. But you're gonna add them onto both sides. And remember, we have 2 of those. So we're gonna do that twice. And then we're gonna add those onto the side borders of our quilt. All right, there we go. I have completed step number 13, and I have added it onto my left and right side of my quilt. Remember that your quilt's top and bottom should look like this. I'm trying to make sure not to get jabbed by any of the pins that I have in there. It should look like this. A quick note on step 13, at the very bottom of step 13, it says to trim this border to 54.5 inches long, or the actual length of the quilt top. Make sure to trim the same amount off the top and the bottom to keep the D triangle centered. So be careful as you're doing that. Join to the sides of the quilt top and press outwards. I did all that, but I did want to mention that for some reason, mine came out to be exactly the right length. I didn't need to trim anything. So I would recommend waiting to trim until you are 100% sure that you need to cut off any excess, because mine, for some reason, was exactly the length that I needed, which may mean I did something wrong somewhere along the way. But so far, it's working out. All right, let's move on to step 14. All right, for step number 14, we're gonna measure horizontally, so across the very top of our quilt. And these strips, these A strips that we have in our clue package, will go across the top of our quilt. So you'll add this to the top and to the bottom of your quilt. I tend not to trim mine. I tend to just go ahead and sew it on. And then once I see how much I have left over, I just trim the excess off of that. That may not be your way of doing it, but however you do it, you're gonna add both A strips to the top and bottom of your quilt. All right, guys, we have finished with step number 14, where we added our borders up on the top. Mine are a little long at the moment. You may not be able to see them, but mine may be a little bit long, but that's okay. I'm gonna trim them up so that way they're equal to the rest. And that's it, guys. We have finished Sparkle and Shine. It looks great. I love my colorway of Moonstone, and I can't wait to see what all the other colorways look like. There are a few other notes here in the instructions that you'll want to pay attention to. This completes your quilt top to quilt, layer with backing and batting, and quilt through all 3 layers. It also gives you instructions on binding, and then that's it. We are done, guys. We have finished yet another puzzle mystery quilt from Cotton Cuts. It's been a lot of fun, but don't go anywhere if you want to see how I extend it. In fact, you can see over there, hanging right there, how I'm going to make my quilt a little bit bigger by adding yet another border. Okay, I've gone ahead and taken all the labels off. That was the pretty much last step that I needed to do before moving on to adding my extra borders. This is fabric E from the Moonstone colorway, and I usually buy my fabric in like 2-3 yards and then cut long strips so that way they're single pieces of fabric. However, the way that Tulip Pink has done her line work collection, it's smart because if you get a fat quarter, you get a whole rainbow in a fat quarter slice of it. But unfortunately, I couldn't just make a long cut in 2 or 3 yards of fabric. I had to cut each strip from width of fabric, and then I went ahead and sewed them together so that way I have a long strip, but it had to get sewn in the middle, but that's okay, it's no big deal. Basically, I'm going to be adding, this is a 7-inch wide strip of fabric, and I'm going to add this onto all sides. I cut 8 in total because I needed 4 for each side, and then since one cut of width of fabric would not be long enough, I had to join them together. So in total, I have 8 cuts that have been sewn together in pairs. That's the words I'm looking for. They've been sewn together in pairs, and now I'm going to add each of these to the top and the sides and the bottom. So there we go. I have added my borders on. I cut the strips at about 7 inches, and so right now they're about 6 3/4 inches, and once we put the binding on, I am probably going to have about 6.5 inches extra material there, somewhere around in there. It's always a little different each time you create a quilt, but this is the end of Sparkle and Shine, and it has been a great journey. Well, thank you so much for joining me during Sparkle and Shine. It's been a fun journey with you, and I hope you'll join me for the next puzzle mystery quilt from Cotton Cuts. Thanks for watching today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it. I'm making it my goal in 2021 to hit 100,000 subscribers, but I need your help to make that happen. Take a moment and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and then don't forget to check out the other great videos that I have here on my channel. Also, share this video with your friends and tell them to come check out the Off Kilter Crafter.